Canadians are digesting the Prime Minister's initial list of major projects designed to boost the economy in the face of tariffs being opposed by U.S. President Donald Trump. Mark Carney confirmed the first tranche of 5 in Edmonton a short time ago, positioning them as nation building and a way for the country to not only make it through the current period of economic uncertainty, but to build a new and strong path going forward.
The path ahead will not always be easy, because what's happening now in the global economy is not a transition, it is a rupture. The United States is fundamentally and rapidly transforming all of its trading relationships, and the effects are both immediate and profound. We know we can't control what other nations do, so we're focused on what we can control, building our strength right here at home.
And I want to bring in the CBC's Karina Roman for more on this. She's live in Ottawa. So, Karina, what more did we learn from the Prime Minister at this announcement, making the announcement of these 5 major projects? Interesting to hear how it's sort of being talked about by the Prime Minister, by some of the ministers in terms of what this means. Like, how fast will some of these projects get going?
And of course, fast is relative, right, to how things have gone in the past. So let's start with the list of 5 that made it. We've got phase 2 of LNG Canada in Kitimat, BC. We have the Darlington new nuclear project in Clarington, Ontario. They're going to build small modular reactors. We have the Contrecoeur terminal container project to expand the port of Montreal. The McKelvina Bay Foreign Copper Mine project in Saskatchewan, and the expansion of the Red Chris mine in northwestern BC. So those are the 5 that have made it on the first, going to the new office that's going to say, yes, this is how we get these across the finish line more quickly. However, there is an additional list of 7 that are too early to say that they can just get done, need a little bit more work, but are still priorities for the government, according to Mark Carney. So that includes critical mineral projects in Ontario, Northwest Territories, and the Quebec-Labrador, Wind West Atlantic Energy, which is wind power in Atlantic Canada, of course, Alberta-based Pathways Plus carbon capture project, lots of talk about that, an Arctic Economic and Security Corridor, upgrades to the Port of Churchill in Manitoba, all-weather road infrastructure in northern Canada, high-speed rail between Toronto and Quebec City, and a Canadian sovereign cloud, which would give us data and computing sovereignty and not relying on the U.S. Now, Mark Carney had a very long news conference in terms of both his remarks and his answers to questions, but the summary he gave about why, as I said, speed is relative, why this is so significant is how things used to be and how things are going to be. Have a listen.
Is that we used to build big things in this country, and we used to build them quickly. It's time to get back at it, and it's time to get on with it. That starts with getting out of the way. For too long, the construction of major infrastructure in Canada has been stalled by arduous and inefficient approval processes. From now on, Canada's new government starts by asking ourselves for major projects, how? How can we do it bigger? How can we do it faster?
And people will notice when they look at this list how geographically diverse it is. Obviously, Mark Carney is going to be disappointing some provinces in terms of things they'd hoped would make this initial list. But both between the first phase and this second additional list covers pretty much the whole country, and someone gets something or hope for something soon. So you do realize that part of this is political as well as about the economy. Some questions, of course, from Mark Carney included, well, these first 5 projects, some of them are well on their way. What does adding it to the list do? I mean, if they're already kind of on their way, is this just about picking the low-hanging fruit? But he said that he conceded that proponents of these projects have done most of the heavy lifting, as he put it, but there still is needed help to get them across the finish line. He was asked which ones might get substantial federal dollars. And he said that it depends on the project. Some of them are just needing sort of help with the process, and it's a process issue. Some might need minor federal incentives to open up private sector wallets. But some, like the Arctic corridor, will probably need some serious federal dollars.
It has been interesting to see some of the reaction to all of this, especially from those who are of the same political ilk. Hearing the leader of the opposition, hearing the Alberta premier react, very different.
Very, very differently. So Pierre Poilievre, Conservative leader, the way he sees it is I guess basically you could say he'll believe it when he sees it. He's very, very skeptical about this producing anything and says it's just a whole lot more bureaucracy. Have a listen.
What we have today is Mark Carney, after 6 months, has not approved a single national project anywhere in Canada. It's really incredible. He was elected saying that we are in an unprecedented crisis and that we needed to move with unimaginable speed. So what has he done? He's not permitted a single major mine, pipeline, nuclear plant, or anything else. What he's done today is announce that he's going to send an email to an office that isn't even fully staffed up yet, which will one day consider possibly approving 5 projects. This is pathetic.
As you indicated, Andrew, Danielle Smith, Premier of Alberta, mostly aligned with Pierre Poilievre on many things, but in this case, not so much. She seems pretty positive, even though an oil pipeline is not on the list as of yet. Have a listen.
When I looked at the first 5 projects, I thought, finally they get it, because it's all the projects that have been difficult to build. It's mining projects, it's LNG Canada, and I think that demonstrates a real shift in the focus of this government. I've seen that the Prime Minister has talked about supporting both conventional and new energy, and I think we're seeing that with some of these early announcements. And I would just ask people to be patient.
Now, what was interesting is Mark Carney said, he's asked a lot about oil pipelines in his news conference, and he said that there's sort of a grand bargain. You can't really start building an oil pipeline until the carbon capture project is part of the deal. And since that's on the second list, once that gets going, then you can entertain that, because climate goals are still part of the criteria for these major nation-building projects. Now, the NDP, of course, has a thought of this as well. Their concern is that the legislation that laid the groundwork for this is still an issue because of how fast it passed last spring. So have a listen to interim leader Don Davies.
As you know, New Democrats led the opposition on C5. It was rushed in June. The Conservatives and Liberals combined to ram this legislation through with very little debate. So important questions like funding, and again, whether Indigenous consent will be sought, whether labour standards will be violated, whether environmental assessments will be ignored, are key considerations for us, and we're going to be taking that lens to all of the projects as we study the list.
Now, Mark Carney was asked what he would define success as, and he talked about everything from the number of projects that end up getting built, shovels in the ground, concrete things like that, but also the diversity of the projects, the range in terms of both geography and industry. And he also said that there'll be another announcement very likely of the next list before the Grey Cup, which is in November 16th, I believe, in Winnipeg. He said he will be there. And so by that point, we should have a sense of the next list of projects.
Karina, thank you. The CBC's Karina Roman, live in Ottawa.